Sector White Star game. It is Stardate 315000D. You guys are in the heading to the Asgardi planet. On this stardate, the galactic news reads as follows. The Ravagers, a race of space-travelling savages, have launched attacks on the Agantic and Pavrip Jotsna system. A Ravager fleet has also been seen in the Iri Alategi system, but as yet no attacks have been reported. Planetary governors in the system are putting out a widespread call for aid, and there are rumours that Dominion fleets will move to the sector, although a representative was unavailable for comment. The Caphis syndicates have attempted to gain a monopoly on trade in the Iri Alategi system, but the attempt was rebuffed by the forces of the Dominion. In response to this, the Dominion has increased its already strong presence in the Iri Alategi system. And that is the sort of the publicly available sort of galactic news. And as I've said, you guys are in the Nadwala system. You were talking about heading to the sort of starting planet where you started, which is obviously Asgardi, as I said previously. It's this geologically active world covered by these huge mining cities. So as you guys are sort of travelling to there, though, you're sort of picking up on the sort of like public band, the public communications band, a lot of calls for aid and help going out from the world of Asgardi. And as you're sort of like moving into low orbit, you, from the various conflicting news streams and calls for help that are coming in, you're able to work out that there appears to have been a huge mining disaster due to a tectonic shift on Asgardi, probably caused by like the excessive mining from these like massive hive cities. One of these cities has begun to evacuate, and they're basically putting out a call to any and all ships in the area to assist with the evacuation. And as you're sort of like moving into low orbit on the sort of planetary sort of communications band, you're picking up various calls from ships captains and people who are sort of going to help with this evacuation. There's various people calling for help from this city, and as you sort of like move through the orbit and you see the sort of greyish skies of Asgardi, in the distance over the tall peaks and the mountains, you can see one of these huge hive cities. There are great billowing black noxious plumes of smoke sort of jettisoning up from it, and around its base, because the city is now like on a bit of a slant, it appears to have partially sunk into the earth, where, you know, normally the base would be like the mining lasers and stuff like that. You can see that around it is what appears to be a lake of magma, and you can see it underlit by the golden orange glow of this lava and this molten rock that has been unleashed by perhaps the incautious mining of the city. As you're sort of watching, you can see numerous sort of small scale like planetary sort of ships, not like big starships, just like little sort of little like freighters and little sort of planetary landers and stuff like that, zipping to and fro from the city, probably ferrying people away and such like. What do you guys do?
Sorry, John, just to clarify now, we've purchased our ships and they're all souped up and we're ready to go? Okay.
Indeed, luckily for you, the city that you normally go to isn't the city that's had this disaster, although you've managed to get everything you wanted. However, you did have to do a bit of extra legwork to get the supplies, because a lot of resources on Asgardi are being diverted to deal with this disaster. So you've managed to get everything you wanted. It took a bit of legwork. If you wanted to buy, like, because obviously we agreed this last session before this happened, if you wanted to get any more stuff now, there's a chance that whatever additional resources you wanted to get might be unavailable, because, like I say, a lot of the ships, a lot of like the people, a lot of the resources are being diverted to help to deal with this crisis.
Okay.
What kind of space have we got available?
We have a whole transport ship. Which must have a pretty high tonnage.
You can get a very rough idea of sort of like how much space there is in something by basically looking at the hit points of the ship, because obviously more hit points, the bigger the ship.
Okay. So then we're kind of 60, 90, 95, so we have a lot of space then.
Yeah, you guys don't have a shortage of space. The only thing you had previously that was an issue, which now obviously Balan has sorted out by like hiring people on, is previously you didn't have enough crew to like fully work all of the ships that you've managed to gain access to. So obviously at the minute you have the Defiant, which is your original light freighter. You have the O'Neill, which is a decommissioned military surplus gunship that you purchased. And of course you have the Hawk, which is the blockade runner that you salvaged from Sagan 364. And of course you have the Bounty, which is the small Caphis fighter that you purchased off Corpacora. Now at the moment, in terms of where you guys are, and obviously you can change this as you see fit, we currently have on board the Defiant, we have Tylo and Balan, and of course a complement of mercenaries and 2R2D or droid, it's an astromech droid. And crammed onto the Bounty we have Tan and his new associate Grook, who, even though the fighter's really only made for one person, he's pretty insistent on like cramming himself into the back seat because he doesn't want to miss an opportunity to like pay off this life debt to you. So if you imagine like it's the equivalent of you being in one of those like two-seater sports cars, and then like you've got someone like crammed into the back like on the parcel shelf, only instead of like a normal person it's like a giant blue lizard man that's like crammed into the back. Okay, so you guys have stocked up. You've got.
I think something's kicking off.
Okay, bit of space static coming in there.
Bit weird.
We're being hailed, Captain.
Okay, and to be honest, that's actually quite apt because, as I've said, it's difficult to actually get a message through at the moment because every man and his dog is like putting out calls for help or trying to coordinate rescue efforts. So that's actually quite apropos at the moment. But you guys have stocked up. You've got your ships. You're good to go. You've still got, obviously, Zanar, the sort of strange symbiote woman that you rescued from the alien vessel. You found her in cryogenic suspension. You were able to sort of rescue her, and she basically gave you this story that her species, which she called the Zol, who were like a symbiote species, so they look human but they have these like worms inside them. She said, oh, they were on like a peaceful mission. They were just like reaching out a hand of friendship towards the Dominion many thousands of years ago, and the Dominion responded with like a massive attack fleet and just started wrecking them. When they realised the day was lost, she and a couple of companions, who unfortunately didn't survive, used like the cryopods on board her ship to try and like preserve themselves. But she doesn't really know what happened. She has no memory since you guys sort of rescued her. However, you've been able to find out on the sort of like galactic web that her sort of home planet or her home system appears to be currently under imperial quarantine by the Dominion, and that is the Thrun system, which I'll ping on the map. It's there, and it's got a little sort of symbol on it. You've not found out any details about why it's in quarantine or anything like that, but basically when you look on the sort of like galactic net, information about it is very sparse indeed. However, it has like a sort of like quarantine, do not enter by order of the Dominion, sort of slapped all over it. And that's apparently where she's from. Although when she was last awake before she went into cryogenic suspension, obviously there wasn't a quarantine. Many thousands of years have passed, so she has no idea what the current state of her home system and her home planet Zol Prime is. So it's over to you guys.
So I would see myself as like the Han Solo look after myself type. So my immediate sense is that we would be on our way and wouldn't be getting involved with Dominion types around a rescue. Happy if people feel differently, but that's just...
Well, I'll tell you what, since you're all either on the same ship, I mean, I'm assuming like the Bounty's like still sort of like grappled onto like the Defiant, just because why move under its own power when you're not gonna grapple it onto the Defiant? So you're all sort of within the vicinity when you talk to each other. So why don't we have that discussion now? We'll have you guys, obviously, and Grook and Zanar all sort of sat around your sort of table in the crew area on board the Defiant, and you can have that discussion about what you want to do next. Over to you guys. I'll chip in as the NPCs, although Grook's probably not going to contribute anything of startling clarity, to be honest.
So what do you want to do?
I'd like to find out more about why Zol Prime is in quarantine. Because it's been a few hundred years since anyone has any information about it. And just in case it's in quarantine for a valid reason.
Well, how do we know it's valid, though, if the Dominion are saying it?
Sorry, I don't know that it is. But it might be, and we should maybe find out before.
At which point Zanar says, well, I wish I could tell you more, but all I can tell you is that there was no evidence of a quarantine when I left. But as you say, it's been many thousands of years since I've been there. I have no idea, and the publicly available information is lackluster, to say the least. Effectively, when you look on the galactic net, it's like, you know, when you see one of those like Secret Service documents and it's like redacted and like all the information's blanked out. It's a similar thing to that.
Should we go closer, maybe here? Try and find out more. Closer to the system? It's going to be like shots in the dark, obviously, because the public record doesn't exist, but
the closer we get, the more likely we are to find something, though, right?
yeah, and or someone who might have some maybe oral histories. Who knows? Something that's not on the space web.
Okay, I think we need to start like stashing some of these ships.
But why don't we hire a captain and a crew and have them sail the Defiant to the secret base, and then if we can basically leave the Bounty stashed on the O'Neill, then we can just have two pretty strong ships. One of them like heavy duty combat, and one of them more kind of fleet and fast, and that's probably a good place to start. And then we always have the freighter should we need it to fall back on. Are captains hard to come by?
They've all got cloaking devices now, haven't they?
They have, yeah, all four.
Well, I'll tell you what, since, as I said, resources are a little bit sparse at the moment, there is a 50% chance that resources you look for are unavailable. So, Balan, can you roll me a d6? If you get a 1, 2, or 3, you're not able to find a captain/crew.
Okay,
yeah. So, unfortunately, all of the sort of captains are all being sort of used, and the crews that would normally be spare or available to hire are all being sort of like drafted in to help out with this emergency that's going on.
Okay.
I mean, obviously,
you would have to go to another spaceport.
You would eventually be able to get someone, but it'd take longer.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we can do is we can move to this Herdis section. Is that what it's called? And you know, we can bring the 3 ships there, and then if there's a port there, we could hire a captain there, and then they can just bring it the last kind of 4 light years to the secret base.
Okay, so you're heading to the Herdis system, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So that effectively takes you like 4 days, basically. So no problems with that. And you travel to the Herdis system. It's a fairly small system. There's a couple of planets there on the galactic web. You'll be able to see that the planets are called Collis and Por, P-O-R. The information you're able to get about them is that the people of Collis are sort of very isolationist. They don't have much to do with people outside, whereas Por is described as being a sort of quite like high-tech world, to be honest. Like, you know, if you need to buy any technology, it's pretty much easily available there.
That feels like the one we want.
Okay, so you head towards the planet Por. There is as you're heading close, you can see there's a single like sort of orbital space station in orbit around the planet. It looks like it's seen better days, to be honest. It's a bit sort of broken down and ramshackled. However, the planet itself, as you're sort of heading towards it, looks very high-tech. There's lots of skyscrapers, sort of tall buildings built out of glass and other sort of hard-wearing high-tech materials. You can see roads and sort of hover cars and all that sort of high-tech shiz moving around on the surface.
What's the Dominion presence on that planet?
It is in Dominion territory, as you can see from the map. However, as we know, because this is like Damascus sector is like an outlying sector, although there's no doubt a sort of Dominion governor in charge, the actual sort of Dominion military presence is fairly light.
Okay.
One thing you do notice is you sort of, well, presumably, are you guys planning to land on the planet, or?
If we're going to hire another crew, we're going to have to.
And we want information, right? What do we know what the space station is for?
Okay, you don't know exactly what it's for. Like I say, although compared to the planet Paul, the actual space station, which is just registered on the galactic web as Vernal 3, looks like it's quite sort of shabby and sort of like run down, like it's quite old and has seen better days.
Should we hail the space station and see if we can get information, or are we happy just to go down onto the...
I'll just get to the planet and then pick up a crew or get well either find the info or buy it.
Okay, so we'll head down to the planet.
Okay, so you head down to the planet, and it seems like an almost utopian sort of post-scarcity sort of planet. Like everywhere you look, there are examples of sort of futuristic technology. Everyone's on like hover bikes and hover cars. There are sort of like roads that are sort of heading through the sky, and all the buildings are very tall, sort of modern looking. That the planet looks very clean. It seems as though the sort of technology in nature seem to have reached a sort of detente here. You know, there's plenty of trees and green spaces, but even through them there's like sort of hyperlanes and stuff like that. And everywhere you look, you see humans walking around. They've all got like sort of comlinks on, like headbands and stuff like that. They're all wearing sort of clothing of the latest cut of fashion, made of these sort of futuristic materials. One thing you do notice though is like almost everyone you see on this planet, sort of, and you've only seen maybe 10, 20 people sort of like as you're walking around, because it doesn't seem like it's sort of massively like overpopulated, but you sort of get the feeling from the size of these cities that it's probably like a sizable population. Everyone you see as you're sort of landing, which is no problem, seems to have some sort of like either cybernetic enhancement or some sort of like technology that's integrated into their bodies, even if it's just like a sort of like built-in like sort of comlink. Like, you don't see anyone who doesn't have some evidence of having like technology integrated into their body.
I'll fit right in.
Yeah, to be honest, this is probably one of the few places where, like, with your sort of like cyber eyes, you like no one even like raises an eyebrow. Whereas like a few places you've been that are a bit more backwater, you know, people see with the old cyber eyes, they give you a bit of the old stink eye. Whereas no pun intended. Whereas here, no one even looks at you twice, because like everyone's got some sort of cybernetic enhancement, and they're not all like ridiculous sort of overblown cybernetics like gun arms and stuff like that. But like I say, it might just be as simple as someone's got like a built-in comlink, or maybe they've got like a port there so they can like plug themselves into their technology and stuff like that.
This, if we can find the right people to do it, Tylo, this might be a place where you could disappear. Tylo could die here on this planet, and someone else could continue with us. We could get you new ID. Maybe shake some of that syndicate off your tail. Because you would have the, you know, you already have the technology sort of intro into it all. I think that might help us in the long run. You, especially you, of course, but is that something we want to pursue? It's just something that came to mind.
We can look into it, but last check, these things weren't cheap.
Okay, so you guys are looking to like recruit here or like buy equipment potentially. How do you plan on going about that? How are you trying to find someone who can provide this service to you? And to be honest, you've never found it as easy to access information here. There are like public computer terminals like everywhere. It's like, you know how like now we're getting to the ridiculous stage where like you can get like online fridge freezers and stuff like that, and the sort of Internet of Things. It's like that taken to the nth degree. Like everything you see here, whether it's a car, a coffee maker, seems to have like a little like computer terminal on it.
Say go to the library.
Yeah, no problem at all. You ask around a bit, and yeah, you're told there's an information repository. It's available for the public. You're sort of given directions to it, and as you approach it, it appears to be not a massive building, but a substantial building. It's all done in a very sort of like neo Art Deco style. As you walk in, obviously you don't see rows of books or data crystals or anything like that. Literally, the building is just full of desks with computer terminals on them, sort of built into them. And you can see like a number of people have sort of like who've got these built-in ports have like plugged themselves directly into them. Other people are using the more standard sort of keyboards or like visual interfaces. There seem to be various different sort of options available to interact with the terminals depending on your preference and your ability.
Okay, so there's a couple of searches then. Facial reconstruction.
Okay, so you go onto the computer and you're expecting your standard sort of graphic user interface that is pretty common on computers. However, when you sort of press the button, so I'm assuming you're using like a keyboard to sort of like load up the computer, like a sort of like a very like well done like 3D rendered face. It's very sort of androgynous, and it's just the face sort of like appears on the screen and says, "Good morning, and how may I help you this morning?"
Cybernetic doctorates.
Please clarify, what is the nature of your inquiry?
Search for cybernetic facial reconstruction.
Of course, and it brings up a ream of medical files, which basically tell you that like the medical technology on this planet is almost as advanced as everything else. So like things like plastic surgery, reconstruction, stuff like that, not a problem. One thing you do notice, which is a little bit odd, is you're sort of scrolling through all this medical information, like flipping through it, and you're sort of like, you know, oh, I don't see like a cost or like a price list anywhere.
Yeah, if you can't see the price, it costs too much. So there you go, Tarn. You can now have a look at this. It's going to be a lot of medical talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible, but the cost isn't listed.
I'll, because I'm close by, I presume. So I'll lean over to and talk at the console.
Yep.
It's like display cost of procedures that we have open here.
Okay. The face appears and says, "Of course," and then the screen goes blank for a couple of seconds, and then what appears to be a longer number, but like a little icon that looks like a thumb, like that, pops up.
Must be your local currency. I don't recognize it. But I mean, we'll make a note of it. It's possible. We know that it's possible here. They seem to, I'm not a doctor, but it seems they've got this thing ready to go. If we get enough of the currency, and I think, yeah, we should keep this in mind because.
As you say the word currency, again, like a smaller version of it down in the corner of the screen, so as not to obscure your view, this androgynous computerized face appears again and says, "You have mentioned currency. Would you like to know more?"
Yeah. Yes. More about currency. Thank you.
At which point, again, like a ream of information scrolls up the screen, and you're able, over the course of several minutes, and asking a few questions to this sort of computer interface, you're able to work out that this planet, with its sort of post-scarcityness, seems to operate on a sort of social reward system rather than a hard currency. Effectively, anyone who has a registered account, if someone does something, it's almost like Facebook likes. Effectively, if someone does something nice for you, you can like basically go, "Oh, there's a like," and as you accumulate these likes, that operates as a currency. So if you've got if you've got like 1,000 likes or whatever, you can go to someone and be like, "Oh, could you do this for me?" And they go, "Oh yeah, okay." And then you give them some likes if they give you a good service. And rather than a hard currency, it's basically this sort of one hand washes the other idea, where in return for being like a responsible like member of society, you do good stuff, more people give you likes, you can use them to do more stuff. They seem to have completely done away with the idea of credits, which is used more standardly in the rest of the sector.
Okay. And do we know how many of these likes we would need for?
Sorry, you cut out then. Say again.
Sorry, do we know how many of these likes or this currency we would need to do this procedure?
Let me just have a look. So you're talking about fairly sort of minor like reconstruction. So I'd say probably like a couple of thousand.
Okay.
A display exchange rate for standard credit to local system.
I'm sorry, please rephrase your question.
Is the standard credit valued at all on this planet?
I'm afraid galactic credits are not used on Paul. However, if you wish to exchange credits, I would advise that you invest them in a socially valuable institution, and in doing so you would receive likes from those who have benefited from the institution, and in that way you would be able to exchange your credits.
Donations.
Picking up the idea here. The Dominion probably doesn't like this. It's I'll say this as I'm sort of piecing it together in my mind at the console. Like, they must just abhor this entire planet. It's a wonder that it still stands.
Computer query Toll Prime.
It says, do you mean Zol Prime?
Yes.
Calculating. The planet of Zol Prime is currently under Dominion quarantine due to an outbreak of plague on the surface of Zol Prime. The Dominion Shadow Fleet is stationed in blockade around the system to prevent people from inadvertently spreading the plague to adjacent sectors.
Thank you.
Computer,
You're
how
welcome.
long has Sol Prime been in quarantine?
Sol Prime has been in quarantine for 2,000 standard years.
It's a lot. Plague? Did the plague start 2,000 years ago? I say to the console.
I'm afraid no further information has been made publicly available by the Dominion. However, there is a Dominion research base in the sector which is currently working on a solution to the plague.
All right then.
Computer,
Yes.
where can we hire a captain for a freighter?
There are many able-bodied crew available on Paul.
Excellent.
If you wish, I can provide you with a map to several places where you will be able to hire such people.
If you could, please.
At which point it basically puts up on screen a map of the area of the sort of futuristic city you're in, and it indicates a building which is labelled as the Ministry of Employment.
Anything else to ask the wonderful computer?
Would you like a hard copy of this map?
Please.
At which point there's like a bit of sort of like beeping and whirring from the computer console. Nothing seems to happen. There's no like printer there or anything. Then after a few moments, one of the librarians sort of walks up to you and holds out like a very small data pad.
Thank you.
He nods, smiles.
How can I give you a like?
He says, "Oh, that's very kind of you. Do you have an account set up on Paul?"
No, we'll get one set up. Hold on a second.
Well, if you speak to the computer terminal, it can make all the necessary arrangements.
Thank you.
At which point, yeah, you speak to the computer. Say you want to set up like a social access account. It asks you for basically your standard like generic information, like what's your names, date of birth, stuff like that. Assuming you give it the information, a couple of seconds later, it sort of pops up on screen, and it's obviously like taken like a bit of a picture of you while you're sort of.
So I'm going to lie my ass off, mate, on this.
Yeah, that's fine. You can give it whatever information you want. It doesn't check it or anything like that, and it just like pops up a little picture of you with the information you've given next to it. And it says your account has now been set up. If you'd please place your hand on the desk next to the computer terminal.
Yeah.
You sort of put your hand on the thing, and then there's like a slight sort of burning, like stinging sensation in your palm.
Mother.
It's quite sharp, but it like passes after like half a second, and when you turn it over, it almost looks like someone's like tattooed like a little sort of circuit pattern on your hand.
There we go, kids. We've got currency.
At which point the person the librarian is still stood about, you promised to give a like to. He says, "Oh, I can see you're a bit new at this." He says, "If you just sort of hold your hand like that above mine, and think that you want to give me a like."
Okay, 1 like.
So you hold your hand over his, and there's, you know, like when your phone vibrates, you get that like little vibration. There's like a slight feeling like that runs through your hand, and you can see like his hand like shakes a little bit, and he says, "Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Hope you have a good day now." And he smiles, and he wanders back to his duties.
That feels like if we got a second one, we could just give you 1,000 likes or multiple 1,000 likes to pay for your.
I think the system might recognise we're cheating, but I get what you're saying.
A few haulage jobs might generate enough likes, though. We do have a freighter.
Yeah.
We could hire the captain, set them to take up these haulage jobs locally, go and do our thing, and when we came back, the captain should have acquired enough likes for us to make the necessary changes.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so are you guys going to the Ministry of Employment to try and find a captain?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, you head to the Ministry of Employment, and it's basically like a futuristic version of the job centre, with the sort of caveat that this one actually works. And as you head in, it seems to be very quick, very slick. It's all done by computers, again with these like androgynous sort of faces on them, and basically anyone who's looking to bump up their likes in their social access account basically just walks in and says, "Oh, here's the skills I have," and the computer goes, here's a job you can do, go and do this." And they go out, they do the job. Like, I don't know, let's say, for instance, just as a random example, let's say you go in and you're like, "Oh, I've got some skills at building and carpentry and whatever." The computer might be like, "Oh, there's a guy who wants a house built over here." You go and build the house for that guy. He gives you the likes. Happy days, job done. If you want another job, you come back, it assigns you another job based on what your skills are. And obviously people who want someone to do a job for them, they can just get on their sort of like the computer terminal, send it to the Ministry of Employment saying, "Oh, I need someone to do this for me," and someone will be recruited. It all seems very slick, very quick.
So we'll register for a captain, freight captain, and is it 5 crew?
So you want a freight captain and 5 crew.
1 engineer.
Freight captain, engineer, plus 5 crew. Okay, so it takes about half a day, and you're basically told that you're asked for your like comlink details basically, and you're told by the computer that's the Ministry of Employment that you'll be contacted when someone is assigned to your task. And about half a day later, you get the sort of like ding ding on your comlink, and you hear the sort of androgynous voice that seems this sort of like neutral, polite voice that all of the computer terminals seem to have, that says, "Someone has been assigned to your requested employment. Please specify where you would like the employees to be sent."
Hangar, and then give them the pad we're on.
Hangar Bay 15. Splendid. They will be sent momentarily. And about an hour later, this guy turns up. He's got an engineer with him. There's another like 5 guys. They obviously all don't like really know each other. They've just been sort of like, they're the people who went in who had the skills that you specified, and they all sort of turn up. At which point, because I like getting you guys involved in sort of creating a bit of the background, obviously this is a captain that you're going to be hiring, so I'm going to ask Johannes, as this like captain guy sort of like approaches this guy you're thinking of hiring, what's one thing that your character notices about this captain? Could be physical, could be like a behavioural thing.
So I think it might be interesting if this individual has, and this is of course blatantly to my interest as well as far as the content goes of the game, maybe he has some kind of a I don't know, devotional, like a bit of cloth, maybe like a cummerbund of a certain kind, or like a sash or something that signifies that he's part of a particular outlook on life, whatever that means on this planet. But he's devoted to a higher ideal, which I guess a lot of these people would, because they don't need to do a lot of things that people on other planets might.
Yeah, and certainly the vibe you're getting, because you've been on this planet for a little bit now, is that people do jobs here because not because they need money to like make their rent, because basically if you do, even if you don't do anything, you'll at least have like a small house, but because why not? They've got the technology to provide it. But people do jobs because that's what they're interested in, and because they want to do that job, not because they have to. So Dave, I'm going to ask you, can you please, because I know you're good for names, can you please come up with a name for this person?
Go with Vigor.
Vigor? The Carpathian, splendid.
Oh shit. Get those steaks ready.
Get the packs.
Okay, so as you're sort of waiting at the hangar bay, these people turn up, and this Captain Vigor turns up, introduces himself. He's a sort of bold man with like a little bit of hair hanging down the back, and as he turns up, he looks to be more, if you'd have seen him on the street, you'd have thought he was more of like a priest than a ship's captain. He's wearing like long robes, you know, all the sort of stuff you'd expect like a sort of priestly type to be wearing. However, all these robes have very intricately sewn into them with like metallic thread, almost like a circuit board pattern, a bit like the one you've now got on your palm. And around his neck he has basically like a small bit of like circuit board on like a necklace around his neck. He introduces himself as Vigor, and he says that he's been assigned here by the Ministry of Employment. He says, oh, obviously we were just told that we've all been assigned it because we were told you needed a ship's crew. Can you give me any more details about what you'll be expecting?
Yeah, we're setting up a freight company here.
Oh, I see.
And we thought we'd hire local people, as they know where they're going.
He says, oh, that's very civic-minded of you, and he like holds his hand out like that.
I'll hold my hand out.
You hold your hand out, there's like a... At which point he says, well, it's clear that the machine god has sent you to this place.
Who, sorry?
He says, oh, but forgive me, sorry, I forgot you're not from around here. He says, the machine god, it's the belief of myself and those like myself that the machines that we create are simply an echo of a greater machine that keeps everything moving, galaxies, universes, etc. After all, it's all far too perfect to be simply random chance. So we believe that if you scale everything up, there must be a great machine, or an engine, if you will, that runs everything, keeps the planets in orbit and things like that.
Sounds fascinating.
He says, oh, I'm glad you think so. He says, we don't have a lot of followers on sort of outside poor, to be honest. Obviously a lot of people, and he looks like quite sympathetic here, he says a lot of people are just trying to survive on other worlds. However, here in this paradise where no one wants for anything, we're free to devote our time to more esoteric matters.
Well, welcome to the team.
Oh, thank you.
I will let you get acquainted with your crew, and we'll go and finalise the freight.
Of course. And he starts chatting to like the other 5 people and the engineer, and they all, like everyone on this planet seems sort of quite friendly and like open, because no one's bothering about like, oh, you know, I want to get something out of this guy, because they're like, I can get whatever I want. So everyone seems very friendly, very open. No one's really trying to hide anything. So they're, even though they've not met each other, they're all just chatting away quite happily, sort of introducing themselves. There's a few exchanges of likes.
Okay, I'm going to pull Tarn and Balan away.
Yeah, no problems.
Guys, you know those cybernetic soldiers we encountered? Didn't they say the machine god?
I was a bit busy trying to not get shot. I honestly don't recall. I don't know that they would say that necessarily.
I can't quite remember the after the Resistance's futile part, but I'm fairly certain they said the machine god. It's just something to be wary of.
Let me just jog to the library real quick.
Yeah, not a problem. You jog to the library. It's, as you saw it, it's a little bit busier now. You can see numerous people at consoles. They've all got like the sort of holographic, like androgynous computer face, sort of hovering over it, answering various questions in this polite, neutral voice. But there's so many like terminals, you're easily able to find one.
Yep. Get to one. Activate it.
The face appears and says, "And how may I help you?"
Give me everything you have on the machine god.
At which point it starts narrating to you, and it says, "The machine god is a religious ideal propagated by small groups of people on Paw, that there is a larger engine or machinery at work behind all things in the cosmos."
When is the first instance of the machine god? When did it first appear?
Originally, the machine god cult occurred just after the technology was made available to remove base wants and desires from the populace of Paw. Many who saw this as a momentous occasion were swept up in a wave of devotion towards the new technology. The cult of the machine god has somewhat faded over time as technology has become simply a way of life here. However, there are still those who cleave to the beliefs of the machine god and the worship of the technology that allows this society to prosper.
Cybernetic raiders. Pirates of a kind. Do you have information on these?
There are numerous cybernetic using races throughout the galaxy. Please specify.
Baseline human with prodigious amounts of cybernetic enhancements to the point where they are much more cybernetics than original. Well, not original, but flesh.
At which point it basically says it pops up like a series of sort of like images, and it says, "Please select from the available." And there's like it's basically popped up an image of like every sort of like cybernetic using race that it has information on in its database. And sure enough, as you sort of look through, you do see one of the sort of metallic like cyborgs that you faced previously.
So I'll select that one, and I'll say cross-reference this group, or whatever it is, and timeline and beliefs of the machine god cult.
Please wait a moment. At which point, after it's like when it says a moment, it's literally like a couple of seconds, and it says, "You have selected the Cyborg Legion, a once biological species that has now adapted itself into a largely cybernetic organism that operates using a hive mind. Their aim is seemingly to convert every species they encounter into members of the Legion, fitting them with armoured cybernetics similar to the ones displayed," and it pops up a few pictures of these cybernetic creatures. "Any individual who is thus converted has their individuality subsumed into the Legion hive mind. Although their location of origin and their precise history is not known, it is known that they range out of a hidden central command node referred to as Starnet. No known links with the cult of the machine god."
Does the cult of the machine god promote increasing adoption of cybernetic enhancements?
Confirmed. It is the belief of the cult of the machine god that by becoming closer to machines and technology in general, that they are elevating themselves and becoming more at one with the great machine that they believe controls everything.
Thank you very much for your time.
Not at all. Have a pleasant day.
How do I give the library a like?
Do you have a social access account?
I don't believe so.
If you would like to set one up, one can be arranged for you.
Sure.
At which point, again, it asks you for your bio data, pretty much. Again, you can put in whatever rubbish you want. It doesn't check it. And then, again, it says, "Please place your hand on the terminal."
Yeah, and I do.
And assuming you do so, again, there's a momentary, slight burning sensation that quickly passes in your palm. And when you look at it, you've got, a sort of tattooed, circuit pattern.
Yeah.
At which point it then says, "If you place your hand over the terminal access point and think your intent to bestow a positive message on the library, it will be debited to the library's account."
Yeah, so I'll give the library a thumbs up.
Yeah, no problems.
Support your local libraries. And I'll jog back and I'll let people know. So the things that we encountered, it's the Cyborg Legion. They're a hive mind entity with no links to the folks on this planet that really like cybernetic technology, but they're not a part of the sort of hive creature. So I think we might be good.
Okay, you might want to go and get some freight jobs then whilst I go and start sorting out the gunship.
John, can the captain just get those jobs for us, or do we need to?
Yeah, you ask him. He says, "Yes, that's fine." Obviously, you've been showing him around the ship and sort of giving him the rundown of I presume it's the Defiant that they're going to be using.
Yes.
So he has a look over it and he says, "Yes, I'll head down to the Ministry of Employment. I'll give them the details of the crew and the ship, and that we're available for ferrying freight, and I'm sure within a short space of time we'll receive commissions from Ministry."
Okay.
And he says, I can handle all that. That's absolutely fine."
Excellent.
And he basically takes the crew away. They go and start arranging this.
Do we have a med bay?
I guess that's really a question for John, because their med bays are available, and there's a price in a different book, but not in the book that we're using. So
you wouldn't have one by default. No, you'd have like a small like med station, but
Does it have a scanner?
Yeah, I mean it's not like a full like medical grade one, but it'll have like a simple scanner.
Yeah, I just want to scan my hand and see what's happened.
Okay, yeah, not a problem. You scan your hand, and it seems that although it looks like a tattoo, effectively what it's done in the style of like a tattoo needle, but one that does like it's basically put like a very thin layer of like microcircuitry in your palm that effectively allows you to access your social access account. With the scanner, you're able to work out that like the information about your social access account isn't stored in here. It's like stored on the sort of like the planetary network, which is obviously like ridiculously high tech. But this is like the equivalent of like a credit card that allows you to like access your account. And it's just sort of like implanted in like the sort of upper layer of like your skin. So if you wanted to, you could just like cut that bit of skin off and remove it, and you'd be without it. It's not like deeply embedded in you.
No, I'll leave it. It's like it's fine. Is it? I just wanted to know what it was.
Yeah, no problems.
Right then.
should we head off then to this research center or into Zol Prime or?
Well, let's go to the research centre and probably cause some havoc.
Okay, so where is it you want to go, guys?
The research centre.
The space station in the current system you're in, or?
No, the next one over into the Zol Prime
Right, so you
sector,
want to go
and then
you want to go to Thrun. Okay,
yes,
not a problem at all.
Closed.
Yeah, I assumed you were going cloaked, yeah. Okay, yeah, so you head to the system that has Zol Prime in it, the Herdis system. As you're sort of reaching the outskirts of the system, there are numerous sort of, I suppose, like space sort of buoys sort of floating around that are broadcasting on all the sort of publicly available communications channels. And as you sort of head in, you start picking up these messages that it's broadcasting, and it's on like it's an automated message. It's on a loop, and it basically says, "You are entering restricted space. This area has been quarantined due to plague. Dominion forces are authorized to use lethal force to repel anyone who does not possess obsidian level clearance. If you do not possess obsidian level clearance, turn back now or your ship will be fired upon."
Or cloaked and they've spotted us.
No, they've not spotted you. It's just like it's just broadcasting this stuff like on a wide band, and you've just picked it up.
Oh, there you go, guys. There's the confirmation that we're in the hive for the Dominion at the moment, I think. Well, for the last 2,000 years, anyway.
Is there any way we can scan the sector to see what else is there beyond the station and the planet we've heard about?
Not that dropping the cloak, no.
Yeah, so your scans are very limited while your cloak is up. So like you'd have to like really be like on top of something to like do a scan while you're cloaked. Obviously, if you drop the cloak, you've got a much bigger range, but then you've dropped the cloak and you're in a restricted sector.
And can we scan the sector from outside the restricted area?
Yeah, you can get a very sort of broad scan from outside the restricted area. So as you're sort of looking at the scans and the information that you've been able to gather, you can see that in the Thrun system there's really only one planet, which is Zol Prime. It has 2 moons around it called Pito and Sahasuranuj. On the moon of Pito, you're picking up that there is like a sort of moon base style structure on it, although you're too far away to get any details. And on Sahasuranuj, the second moon, there appears to be what looks to be like a standard like Dominion like refueling depot sort of on that moon. But again, you're only able to recognise it because it's like a standard pattern. You're not really near enough to get any details.
And no orbital stations.
No orbital stations that you can see. However, you are picking up like mad loads of Dominion ships in the area. Like you're picking up like gunships, star cruisers. There's squadrons of fighters doing like regular patrols. At which point, can I ask Tan, can you please roll me a d6? Okay, as you're sort of, I mean, you're on the very edge of the system because you're scanning into it, you're not in the restricted area. You start getting a very sort of slight uneasy feeling in the pit of your stomach, like a sort of icy, like cold feeling.
I'll mention on the... Well, I don't know if we have comms if we're being all cloaked.
I'm assuming, because I'm going to assume, just for argument's sake, so you guys can communicate, that you're fairly close to each other so you can communicate. You're on like an encrypted frequency or something.
Yep. I'll just say that I'm getting a bad feeling about this place. I don't know what it is.
You know what?
Yeah, so Tan says he's getting a bad feeling about this place.
Why?
I don't know.
And in fact, as you're saying that, Tan, you and only you, in your mind, you hear what sounds like a female voice say, "I know you're out there." And again, as you hear this voice in your mind, it's difficult to describe because it's mental, but it feels cold. You almost get that feeling, you know, like if someone on a cold day, when you sat in your nice warm house, someone like throws open the door and walks in, and they seem to have brought some of the cold in with them. It feels like that.
Revise previous. I know why now. There's someone here that is an enemy for me specifically, and they know that I'm here. I think it might be difficult for me to get too close without them noticing me. Because they already know I'm here, they just don't know where.
And as you say this, the room around you seems to darken to your sight only, and you find yourself seemingly floating in a black void. And floating opposite you is a woman, her form covered in close-fitting black armour, and she appears to be like looking directly at you, although you can't see her face behind the helmet that she's wearing. And again, this sort of cold female voice says, "Although I don't know where you are, I can sense that you are near." And then as she sort of lunges forward, and as she does, she pulls out what you recognise instantly as a star sword. Mm-hmm. It flickers into life with an eerie blood red light, and she lashes out towards you. And as like a second before the flickering red blade of this star sword would have touched your astral form, you suddenly find yourself sort of back in the room. And there's just a lingering feeling of cold where the blade would have touched you.
I guess I would have left because I was on the comms when this started happening. I would have accidentally had it on still, so there would have been a sort of like
yeah. So after Tan's been like, "Oh, there's an enemy here for me. I think it's going to be difficult to sneak in." he goes very quiet for a few moments, and then like a couple of moments later you hear him like "Ah!" over the comms.
Are you all right there?
Oh no, whoever's here, they're very powerful. I know. Balan, you're used to this. Tylo, I know how this sounds. I think they almost hit me with a sword from where they are, probably on the station. Yeah, I don't think I can go too close.
Well, you could get back in the fighter and get out of here.
Yeah, that's one option. I think definitely if we're going to approach the station, I need to not be there in the first instance. I can, if we're going in, I can't be the first wave because they will know I'm coming. Whatever the plan is, I can't be at the forefront this time, even though I would very much like to, because they will just pick us out because of me, and I don't want that. Because whoever's on there, they will do very bad things to you because of me.
But what is our plan? Do we want to land on the planet?
Well, ideally, we want to get on the planet, but we need to find the way to get to the planet without being detected. Short of ramming a ship in at hyperspace.
Yeah, but there's no force field around, right? It's just a base on the moon, right? So we can just land on the planet.
Yeah, you're not picking up any energy shields or planetary defences of that scale.
Well, we'll try and make a run on the planet then.
Okay, so you're just trying to make a run on Zol Prime and get yourself on the planet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's bring the blockade runner because it's faster, and then leave the gunship and the bounty here, and then Ta'an can stay here as well, and come to our rescue with the gunship should things go wrong.
Well, fine, but Tarn will have to get out of the space that we're in before this woman mind detects him. I don't know.
Yeah, but we have. Yeah, I think if we agree a location where you're going to stay, me and Tylo can go land on the planet with a couple of the mercenaries, see what's going on, and come back to you. And then if anything goes wrong, we have our fallback location.
Right.
So if you're not here, we just go to the fallback location.
Yeah.
And I guess if things go wrong, we'll break cloaking and we'll call you to come and save us.
Yep, sounds good to me. So me and my friend here are going to be the rear guard.
Okay, no problems. So, Balan and Tylo, you take the blockade runner and you head towards the planet. Obviously, you're cloaked, so that is absolutely grand. You don't face any major problems getting towards the planet, although you notice that the blockade is heaviest in the orbit of Zol Prime, but you slip past it cloaked, not a problem. The atmosphere is registering as breathable. The sort of biosphere seems to be a strange mix of familiar and very alien looking life forms and plants. You estimate from your quick scan there's probably fewer than like 1 million inhabitants. It looks, as you're sort of coming into land like cloaked, it looks as though once this planet was quite high tech, but all the buildings show signs of like damage, of neglect. So it looks as though it's considerably fallen from grace. And are you taking Xanar with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you're sort of heading in to land, Xanar sort of looks very sad, and she says, "Oh my Lord, what's happened to my world? This place used to be beautiful." And you see the sort of like the crumbled remnants of what must have once been majestic, tall buildings now fallen into little more than rubble. And as you come into land, you see what appears to be a large statue that's actually of Xanar herself. But this statue again shows signs of severe damage. There's moss growing on it. There's bits of it chipped off. One of the arms is missing off the statue, but it's like a really like huge sort of statue, but it's obviously seen better days.
Well, Anne, I think we should fly over the populace before we land.
Okay, yep, you do sort of like a flyby, and you can see that there are a few people sort of moving around, although most people look a little bit worried, a little bit sort of dingy. They're wearing sort of a little more than like ragged robes. They sort of keep like looking up fearfully at the sky as they move around, and no one really seems to want to be in public for very long. Where they have to go out of one building and into another, they sort of scurry out quickly, sort of look around, and then try and get under cover again as quickly as possible.
I'm going to try and find a place to land that's close to the populace, but not on a doorstep, basically.
Yeah, that's not a problem. There's plenty of space. So yeah, you find a sort of reasonably clear area. I mean, there's a bit of a rubble, and there's a few sort of like partially collapsed buildings. But yeah, you set the blockade run of the Hawk down. There's a slight jolt as the sort of like the landing legs go down and like onto the floor.
I'm going to leave the engine on so that the cloak doesn't turn off.
Yep, no problem at all.
What's the princess's name again? Sorry.
Xanar.
Xanar, these are your people. I don't think the Dominion's been kind to them.
She nods, and you can tell she's obviously very upset and moved by what she's seen from the look on her face. And she says, yes, of course, I must go out and try and work out what's been going on. And she sort of like makes to go for the door.
Balan, you might want to stop her a second.
Okay.
It might not be wise for you to immediately engage with your people.
She said, "What do you mean? I can't just stand there. I mean, look at them. They've obviously suffered."
They have suffered, but you know, what kind of response are you going to get? You've been missing for 2,000 years. They might blame this whole thing on you.
She nods and says, "Well, given that you rescued me, I suppose the least I can do is delay myself for a few moments, if you think that's best."
I do think it's best.
She nods and says, okay. And she sort of like takes a couple of steps back from the door.
Balan, we need to go and find the local governor, or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Before we do, are we able to scan the people to see if they have multiple life forms within them?
Yeah, you're able to scan like a few of the populace that are sort of like close enough. The ones you scan don't appear to have multiple life signs. They appear for all intents and purposes to be human.
Okay. Okay.
At which point, sort of Xanar, seeing what you're doing, she says, "Well, yes, there's only so many of the symbionts to go around. It's considered a great honour to be joined with one of them. I don't even know if they're still able to do it. Looking around at all of this," and she sort of gestures out the viewport at like several of the ruined buildings.
Well, stay here and let us go and find more information.
Okay.
And I guess we should dress up as something close to what they look like, so we kind of fit in a little bit.
Yeah, they're mostly wearing sort of like ragged robes and sort of fairly like poorly maintained clothing, so it's not difficult to throw a robe on.
Okay. Do you want to come, Tylo?
What crew have we got on this ship?
We have we've basically 6 crew on each of them, and then like 10 mercs. So I think if
okay, let's take a merc. And
yeah, so me, you, and 2 mercs, I think is a good.
Yeah,
nice, subtle, but robust.
Yeah, no problem. So you both grab like a couple of robes. Likewise with the mercs, you get from your sort of stores. You're basically like getting like sheets and ponchos and stuff, which not difficult to come by. And you get sort of quite loose fitting ones because your mercs are sort of armed, but you get like quite loose fitting robes so they can sort of like conceal their armaments underneath it, and likewise yourselves.
Okay. And then, do we know they speak our language?
Well,
does Sonora know if they used to speak the common language?
She says yes, they should do.
Okay.
Okay, let's go into town.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, you head out of the ship, togged up in your robes. You see a few sort of like people around, and you head into what must once have been like a sort of splendid like central plaza with like a fountain, buildings on either side, but the fountain is now like chipped and dry. There's moss and plants growing everywhere. You see like a few sort of animals like rats and things like that. Most of the buildings show signs of damage, cracks, and it's pretty much devoid of people. Occasionally you see someone sort of like move out of a building and then quickly like scurry into another building, like not wanting to stay out in the open too much.
Okay. So I guess we should try and find something that looks like a cantina or a bar where people might be gathering, or if there's any music or noise coming from any of the buildings.
It's funny you should say that, because one thing you've noticed is that the whole place is like eerily silent, aside from like the odd cries of like some of the animals that go up and the occasional sort of scuffling footsteps of someone sort of like crossing the open and quickly ducking into another building. All of the sort of normal hubbub and the sounds of like merriment and people living their lives that you expect here seem to be largely absent from this place. If it weren't for seeing the odd sort of flickers of movement of people, you'd think this place was deserted.
I'll try and grab the next one that flickers past then.
Okay, yep, so you grab, as this guy sort of like dashing past, you just like grab hold of him. He's a thin sort of like Weasley looking man wearing, like say, these ragged robes. He's got various like cuts and sort of like bruises on his face, and he's like, as you grab him, he's like, oh, we can't stay in the open, we've got to get under cover.
Okay, follow him.
he sort of like he gestures and he heads over to a small sort of building again with large cracks, pretty much ruined. And as you head in there following him, you can see like about half a dozen other people similarly in a similar miserable state of existence. They've got like a small campfire going in the building. There's like a pot of what's maybe stew or something similar, so cooking over it. There's a threadbare looking woman sort of ladling this like gruel into like chipped wooden and pot bowls, and people are sort of dipping like stale bread in it and sort of glumly eating this quite sort of miserable repast. As this guy walks in, assuming you're like not keeping hold of him, he basically heads over, and the woman sort of looks at him, gives him like a very sad smile and nods, and then like and hands him one of these bowls full of slop, at which point he like sits down cross-legged and he's like,
go and speak to the cook.
You walk over to the woman, like before you even have a chance to say anything, she just like looks at you again, gives you this sad smile, like, and holds out this bowl full of like fairly unappetizing like gruel to you.
You keep that.
She says, oh well, you should try and keep your strength up. I mean, I know it's not much, but
it's okay, I'm fine, thank you. How many have been injured?
She sighs sort of deeply and says, oh, it seems like more every day. But occasionally people get desperate. They try and salvage one of the old ships and get off world, and it always ends the same way. The ship's shot down. We try and do what we can if there's any survivors, and everyone will swear off it, and then in a few months' time someone will get desperate enough to try it again, and the same thing will happen. She says with like a weary resignation in her voice. Still, it's been like this ever since my my grandparents' days, and probably theirs before, and I don't suppose anything will change in the near future. But I do what I can to help people out. I mean, what little it is, and she sort of gestures at this horrible slop in this cauldron.
We spotted a statue on the way in.
She gets a little wistful look on her face, and she says, "Oh yes, the statue of Princess Zanar. Is well, they say that back in the good times here, when the royal family used to rule the planet, they say there was plenty of food for everybody, and it was a time of plenty, and the royal family were wise, and they ruled over everyone, and they looked after their subjects, and they say in the old legends that the princess disappeared, and her father, his only daughter, gone, pined away from sadness and passed away shortly afterwards. And since then, well, things just seem to have gotten worse. I mean, obviously it was before my time, but that's what they say. That's what the old folks say."
Are there any of these old folks around that we could speak to?
At which point she sort of like looks past you and she's like, Hiram, and like an old guy with like a long like grey beard, so like he's like pulling his robes around him against the cold, sort of looks up and he's like, "What?" She's like, "Oh, got a couple of fellas here who want to hear some of your stories about the good old days." And like the tone of her voice leads you to believe that like she's heard all these stories a million times. And she's like, she leans over to you and says, "Oh, don't mind old Hiram, he'll talk your ears off if you let him. If you don't mind, but I've got people to be fed, and I've heard all his old stories.
Thank you for your time."
A million times." She nods and says, "No problem." And she's like, Hiram, and he's like, "What?" It's like, "Come and talk to these two fellas." And he's like, "Ah." So like gets himself up and like picks up like a gnarled like stick and like hobbles over to you, and he's like, "You want to hear some of my stories, do you? What story do you want to hear?"
The story of the princess. And
He
her
says,
father.
he says, "Yes, the story of Princess Zanar. That's one of my favourites." Well, and I'll do you guys the favour of like giving you the abbreviated version of his story, but if you imagine that this story I'm about to tell you very shortly is like vastly expanded with a lot of rambling. So in character, you're getting the sort of Hobbit trilogy version of this story, where we've taken a story and he's padded it out massively. However, he basically tells you that back in the good old days, it was a time of plenty, everyone had enough food, no one wanted for anything. The royal family, the king, the queen, his daughter, Princess Zanar, and those that were chosen and were elevated were wise, and they ruled over everyone, and they had the knowledge of the ages contained within their being, and they used that vast knowledge to improve the life of everyone on this planet and make it a paradise for people. Then there was talk that they wanted to expand the blessings of Zol Prime beyond this world and share their knowledge and this wonderment with other people. And being one of the most sort of valued diplomats, Princess Zanar was sent out into the Black Beyond to make contact with some of these other people, to share this knowledge and this enlightenment with other people. However, she never returned, and her father, so it's said, pined away for grief of her loss and died shortly afterwards. And it was a short time after that that what he calls like the dark times began, when a great empire came and sort of trapped them all on their planet, and without the trading they used to do with other planets and other systems, and without access to resources and their technology, they gradually sort of fell into the decayed state in which they now exist, and have existed for at least 2,000 years.
So it sounds to me like maybe if you brought the princess back, you'd have good times.
He says, yes. I wish that we could. I mean, it's been so long as well since anyone was chosen. With most of the people who knew how to do it dead, we've not been able. No one's been able to be joined for at least 1,000 years, and without the knowledge of the ages, well, we're lost. He said the joining caves lie unused. The worm tenders still care for their charges, but without the knowledge of how to be joined, the vast knowledge that they have is lost to us.
Well, thank you for your story.
No problem.
Most interesting.
Young fellow.
And
he sort of he peers around, and then he sort of peers under the hood, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, young miss. I couldn't really tell with the robes and everything."
It's okay. Thank you. Right, we better get on to the next one, so we're not caught by the outside.
Yeah. Are any of the chosen left?
Hiram says, "No, alas not. I mean, we, like I say, the worm tenders still care for their charges, but we don't have the knowledge of how to conduct the joining anymore. I wish we did. We could severely use their knowledge now."
Okay. And did the Empire ever come onto the planet, or did they only fire from space?
He says, the Dominion, no, they stay up there in their ships, but anyone who tries to leave or come in is shot down. Every now and again someone gets desperate enough to, or finds a ship that's serviceable enough to try and make a break for it, but no one gets past them. And I suppose we've just accepted our lot after so many years.
Have they ever been down on the planet side, or have they only ever fired from orbit?
He says, not as far as I remember, no.
Well, don't lose hope, old man.
He says, well, I'll try not to, but look around you. It's difficult to keep hope alive in times like this.
You can always rise.
He nods and says, well, I hope you're right, miss. At which point, we're going to jump across to Tam, who is on the gunship, I believe, the O'Neill. And as you're sort of still stationed just outside the system, you've got a crew and stuff like that. One of the crew is like managing the O'Neill, and they basically defer to you because you're the boss. Basically, comes over and he says, "Sir, we're picking up a distress call just inside the system. Seems to be from a small craft."
Any message?
He says it's just a standard distress signal. Yeah, SOS, that sort of thing.
What kind of ship it is?
Seems to be a small fighter craft. It's just on the outskirts of the system. It just seems to be sitting there.
Yeah, we'll ignore that until something changes.
Very good, sir. And he goes back to his business. Okay. At which point, I'm going to suggest we have like a short 5-minute break here, use the conveniences, etc., and then we will crack on. So we'll be back in 5 minutes.
We took a 5-minute break, Dave.
I've got to admit, I did love your guys' method of like dealing with the blockade. But you got to stay cloaked. I was like, legit. That's what I'd do.
It's not as fun as Plan D, mate.
Yeah, probably more effective and less lethal, though.
There did seem to be a lot of ships, all right, that were bigger than ours.
Well, yeah. There's like an entire like Dominion fleet, like sort of stationed in the sector to like keep people out. And obviously, most people don't have like all of their ships with cloaking devices on it, so they're not really sort of prepped to deal with that.
No.
Okay, so we pick up again with you guys on Zol Prime. So you finish speaking to Hiram, this sort of old geezer. What do you want to do?
Go back to the ship.
Yeah, no problems. You head back. Obviously, Zanar's there, sort of waiting for you and asking you loads of questions about what's going on.
Fill in the blanks, basically.
Yeah. When you sort of mention like the sort of worm tenders and the caves, like the joining caves, she like perks up a bit about that and she says, "Oh well, at least they've survived." I was worried that none of the symbionts would have survived.
And Do you think the symbionts will have information as to what the Dominion want?
She says, well, I don't know about that, but effectively the symbionts that people who are joined, like myself, if you think of them as like, I suppose, recorders, they accumulate knowledge, and that is shared with the person they are joined with.
Okay.
Do you know the ritual for joining?
Yes, of course. All of the members of the royal family are taught it at an early age. It's one of our most sacred duties. Though only those of royal blood and those who were chosen either due to great deeds or great potential were joined, and the royal family would conduct the ritual to enable the joining.
Well, we did find a woman who was feeding people, to help protect them from the ills of the world, and perhaps she would be a suitable choice to be chosen.
Well, yes, I do. Obviously, I need to speak to the people, and I don't know if any of the equipment that we use to conduct the ceremony survives.
Should we go to the joining caves and check?
Yes, if you're happy for me to leave the ship now,
yes,
I know the way there.
You might want to wear a disguise, though.
Yeah, she'll put on a robe and like a hood and whatnot as well. And you all head out onto the sort of like this ruined, blasted remnants of this once fertile world. She leads you through the ruined city and leads you to the rubble of a large building, and you're taken through. You can see the remnants of great columns and arches that must have once been splendid architecturally. And she leads you to at first it's like a worked stone passageway that sort of slopes downwards and heads under the ground, and eventually it sort of transforms into more of a sort of like natural stone, and she leads you out into basically a large cave, and in the centre of it is what appears to be a pool. There is like mist playing across the surface of it, and every now and again you see like a sort of eel-like creature sort of like move across the surface of the water before vanishing into the mist. As you step in, sort of like 4 people wearing ragged robes and holding like very primitive looking spears sort of like leap out of like side tunnels, and they're sort of like pointing these spears at you. Although, to be honest, they look as malnourished and as in poor condition as anyone else in this world. So like they're not really a great deal of threat.
Hi.
One of them's like, oh, it's forbidden for anyone to enter the joining caves. And you see like his hands are like shaking, like he's almost barely got enough strength to like hold the spear.
How do you tend to them then?
He says, it's been a sacred duty for those of us who are descended from the original tenders to try and tend to our charges.
Can royalty enter here?
Well, yes, of course, but there aren't any members of the royal family anymore.
I'm just going to step back at this point and let the princess deal with it.
At which point, yes, she steps forward. She, with a dramatic flourish, like throws off her hood. Her hair cascades down around her shoulders. At which point, obviously they all recognise that there's a giant statue of her outside, and they all sort of like drop their spears to the floor with a clatter, and they all fall to their knees, sort of like this look of absolute wonderment on their face. She looks down again with a sad smile at them all and says, "Tell me, what has happened here?" One of them says, "Oh, Princess, you've been lost for so long. You disappeared. Your poor father passed away from grief, and then the Dominion came, and they stopped anyone from entering or leaving, and we didn't have." And he sort of like he breaks off into like sobs as he's overcome with the emotion. At which point she waits patiently and then says, "It's fine, it's fine." And he says, "We didn't know how to conduct the rites to join people. We tended to the worms as best we could. Many of them perished, but we've managed to maintain this one pool and keep these worms alive. At which point she sort of smiles and sort of like gestures from all to rise and says, "You've all been through great hardships, and I can see that despite what the Dominion have done to us, you've done the best you could. I couldn't have asked, neither myself or my family could not have asked any more of the people." And she sort of like, again, gestures, and they all slowly start sort of climbing to their feet. And that's all they're also asking her questions like, what happened? Why did you disappear? And she says, well, we went to meet with representatives of the Dominion, hoping to share our knowledge with them, and they seemed receptive at first, but when we shared some of the ancient knowledge with them, suddenly they ceased all communications and they attacked us. Myself and a couple of others were able to make it to cryogenic suspension pods, where we remained. Unfortunately, my two companions passed away, but I was rescued by these people here, and she gestures at yourselves. But I know it has been a long time, but to me it seems only the blink of an eye. I still remember this place as it was, and again she looks very sad as she sort of looks around at the ruins of her home. A couple of the worm tenders like, what should we do now, Princess? And she's like, well, we need to rebuild, but as to what we can do with the Dominion fleet around the planet, I honestly don't know. I need to think on it a little more. But it is clear that, as you've said, many of the symbionts have perished. Since it is clear that we need to begin the joining again. And she starts talking to them a lot of sort of like technical babble that you guys don't really understand, and they're basically saying that like some of the equipment still survived, but it's going to take them a while to sort of get things up and running again, and they don't have the sort of vast array of these symbionts that they once have. They've only got like a handful of them left. And she's saying, well, it's vital that they join them with people, since once they're joined, they'll be able to start using the knowledge that the symbionts bestow to start rebuilding this place. But she seems a little bit wary, Zanark. She's like, oh, if they start just like rebuilding blatantly, what are the Dominion going to do about it? And obviously she doesn't really have an answer, because she doesn't have like a massive fleet or anything like that to oppose the Dominion. If they decide to start bombarding the planet from orbit, they're not really going to stand a chance. But you can see she's trying to put like on a brave front for her people, and they carry on talking about the joining and like how wonderful it'll be when people can be joined again, that sort of thing.
Did your ships have cloaking ability?
She says, oh, no, we didn't.
You might want to consider building that first before you start making any major moves.
As well, hopefully once we're able to join people again, we'll be able to use the knowledge to start manufacturing that sort of thing. But obviously we'll need to start smaller. So much of our technology has been lost. Okay, we jump back to Tan on board the O'Neill. So maybe like an hour or two's passed since the crewman brought you the word of the distress signal, and he comes back up again. He says, sir, that ship's still putting out a distress signal, but I did like a cursory scan, but I'm not picking up any signs of actual damage to it. In fact, it seems to be like moving around the edge of the system, still broadcasting the distress call.
What kind of trajectory are we talking about here?
He says, well, it seems to be doing a sort of orbit of the outskirts of the system.
Going in circles?
Yes.
it's not leaking anything.
I'm not picking up any signs of the sort of leakage you'd expect from a damaged reactor or anything like that. I mean, obviously our scans are a little hampered by the cloak, but when it passed near enough to us, I wasn't picking up any signs of damage at all. I mean, I suppose it's possible they could have internal systems damage, but if they have, I wouldn't expect them to be moving around. Standard distress protocol would be to remain in one place so you can be more easily located.
That makes sense. Also, there's people who would dearly like to trap us. So... I don't know, we can drift a little bit closer, see what happens. Use the thrusters. Give us a little push. We'll do a bit of a drift, see what happens when eventually we drift closer and get a better scan.
Yep, no problems. You basically wait until it sort of circles around again, and then you sort of like maneuver yourself very slowly and still under cloak, a little bit closer, sort of as near as you can get to the edge of the system without actually being in it. And a quick scans run. The ship is a small fighter. You're only picking up one life sign on it. There's no signs of a damaged drive. The weapons appear to be powered down, but there is power running through the systems. It's a small Dominion fighter craft, 2 proton missiles, linked laser cannons, no sort of light speed drive, just like standard sort of inter-system drive. And it, like I say, just appears to be doing this circuit of the system, broadcasting this distress signal on like public frequencies. Like I say, you're picking up one life sign on board, human, from what you're getting from the scans.
And it's not broadcasting anything else than the standard.
No, it's just sending out the standard like distress or SOS signal.
Oh, we're gonna sit and wait. We're gonna give it the long haul scan and just compare over time.
Okay.
If anything changes, because the thing is here, which I will have mentioned to my compatriots on board, that we like to help people, but currently we really like the cloak that we have.
Okay, yeah, so you do another couple of passes and a couple more scans. Roll me a d6.
Yeah. Okay. That's a 5.
Okay, so on about the second or third pass, the scans show pretty much the same thing. On like the second or third pass, as it goes past, again you get this sort of icy cold feeling.
Just on instinct, because I don't truly have the, I haven't been taught this, but I know that, basically everything's possible.
Indeed.
But I don't have the skills or the tools for it, but I know that everything's possible. So I'll just sort of like try and, as I feel the cold, I'll reach out with the way and sort of like push, and think that as if I'm trying to transmit a message.
Okay, what are you trying to transmit?
I'm trying to transmit that I know you're here too.
Okay, and as you sort of send this message out using the way, you again hear this cold female voice say, "And I am aware that you are out there. Will you meet with me, whoever you are? I can sense that you are strong in the way."
I have a very good idea of who and what you are. I'll just think at the sort of screen that I'm looking at, I guess, here of readings. Why would there be any reason for us to ever meet unless it was for violence?
Those like ourselves are above the base nature of this conflict and of what is occurring here. I am obliged to be here by my obligations, but there is a higher obligation than what is occurring in this system, and it is under the auspices of that I suggest we meet. Perhaps we might learn something from each other.
I will warn you, my technique is quite poor. It's not really the greatest time in this sector of space to be practicing swordsmanship with the appropriate tools. Fairly few teachers.
Then perhaps you might learn something from me.
I know where to go if I want to get murdered. What else can you possibly offer?
Given that I know you're there, does the fact that I am here in a small vessel with none of my weapons armed not at least earn me the respect of a face-to-face conversation? If I wished you dead, then I could have simply informed my superiors in the Shadow Fleet. I would like to think that the fact I have not done so would at least merit me the courtesy of a conversation.
We're having one.
Indeed. But this method of communication is mentally taxing, perhaps more so to yourself than to I.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And that's why I'm waiting for something. You ask for recognition in honor of what you are. I'm not sure that's something you can do.
If you'll forgive the pun, there are ways that our arts can be practiced if one knows the right methods to use without subjecting oneself to the scourge of Dominion scrutiny. And there is much honour and recognition in passing those teachings on to another.
Let's say for a second that I would believe you. Are you insinuating that the Dominion does not know what you are? That it has somehow slipped their notice?
You get a sort of... She doesn't laugh out loud, but you get like a sense of like amusement from her, which says, of course the Dominion is aware of what I am and the abilities I possess, and by placing my abilities at the behest of the Dominion, I'm free to continue my studies and expand my knowledge. I do not have to run and hide. I do not fear the scourge of the Dominion. What you must appreciate is that the Dominion, like all empires, legions, will eventually pass in time. The only thing that is truly eternal is knowledge and power. Those like myself, we make ourselves useful to the Dominion while it lasts, and when it passes, as all such things must, we will remain. And because we make ourselves useful, we will not be struck down. We will survive this passing fancy, grow stronger, and we will continue onwards. Is it not our responsibility to ensure that our teachings survive?
There's got to be more than survival. Bacteria survive. We need to be more than that.
Indeed, but all I'm saying is that there are ways to do things that free you of the restraints and the problems that some of our kind face, because they make themselves an enemy of the Dominion. Whereas I, who make myself an ally, am left free of their attentions. Granted, it brings some measure of responsibilities with it, but for the rest of the time I am free to continue my studies and continue amassing my knowledge and increasing my power.
You're free to come and go.
Of course, am I not circling the edge of this blighted system in my own craft? I am beholden to no one in the fleet as long as my obligations are met.
Let me pull up like the planetary directory of the system here,
Yep.
John. Yanthes here.
Mm-hmm.
What do I know about that?
Okay, let me just have a look. Okay, so you know that is basically like the home, like that is like Dominion Prime.
Dominion
in this
the Emperor's throne world.
That this is literally like the sort of the main base of like Dominion operations in this place. There's like planetary defense forces, strike fleets, like capital fleets. Like it's like Dominion a go-go in the Anthus system.
I'm picking a different system. Let's revise that. No, we had, what was the news stuff? Gonna go looking for the news bulletin that we just had.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So, what do I know about the Pavirop Jatsna system?
Okay, it's technically within Dominion space, although it's on the very outskirts, the borders with Ravager space. Currently, there's a Ravager fleet has been sort of seen in the area. There's an asteroid belt there. There's a deep space station, a few planets, a research base.
Am I able to pick like an outpost, you know, like a moisture farming types?
Okay, you know that there is a world in that system called Salema Taji, who it was basically sort of racked by geological activity like many years ago, and it's now very sparsely populated as a result of that.
Yep. So I'll pick a settlement which we can, you know, name, but I'll pick a port that operates on the planet.
Okay.
Because it's a backwater now, presumably because of the destruction.
Yes.
That it's undergone. So I'll pick a remaining port on there, and I'll say "3 months' time. Come find me in this port."
Very well. At which point the the distress signal ceases to be broadcast from the small fighter, and it begins heading back towards the rest of the Dominion fleet.
We maneuver back with the thruster jets.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I've been thinking real hard at my computer, guys. Having a conversation with a voice in my head.
Okay, so back on Zol Prime. What are you guys up to?
We've got the princess home.
Indeed.
There's not really a lot more we can do here. I don't think we're going to get paid. So what does Balan want to do?
It feels like they don't stand much chance. And I don't know if we should see why the Dominion is here and whether there's anything we could do to remove their interest in the planet so that the princess could build up again in peace. Get the quarantine order removed. Or whether we cut our losses and mind our own business.
I don't think we're in a position to go up against a fleet.
No, but we could, if we found out what they were doing, like a...
It seems like a slow eradication of the planet to me. It's just, why spend effort destroying it when you can just let it die?
Yeah, but just why would you not just come down and... You know, it's been 2,000 years, right? Why would you not just shoot everyone in the first year and then...
They'd have to expend resources doing it.
Yeah, but there's a fleet in the air. Like, how expensive is it to run a fleet? I think there's more at play.
I don't think we're going to find it here, nor are we going to find it on one of them ships.
What about the moon base, though?
We can go to the moon base, not a problem. Because currently the only option these people have got is inventing cloak technology, flying everybody off the planet. And they can't do that because they need the symbionts to live. As I said, it's just a slow eradication of the race.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be that we'd be better placed getting information about this system from a different Dominion location. And if it is a slow eradication, then there's no immediate panic to solve it.
I don't think we're going to get much round here until the princess there's at least got the handful of symbionts they've got into some people.
Okay.
I don't see that being a quick thing.
No. Well, then let us leave them here and we can go back and join Tan and the others. And then, we will eventually tangle with the Dominion and potentially get more information. When we do, we can make better decisions.
Okay, so where did you guys arrange to meet up with Tan?
I guess we expected to just meet just outside the system.
Okay, that's not a problem. So to sort of like fast forward a little bit, you guys eventually rendezvous at the point you specified. You all meet up, you're all now in the same place. Feel free to discuss what you will. And what I'm going to suggest is you sort of formulate your plan for what you want to do next time, and then we will have a bit of a discussion, and then we will wrap up, and we can start off next time with you guys like heading towards whatever your next plan is. So it's over to you guys as you'll meet up. You've rendezvoused to have a discussion about what you want to do next.
So we got the princess home, and that world is it's just waiting to die.
Why is that? What's going wrong?
Well, the Dominions effectively blockaded it, so there's no resources going
Oh, right.
in.
So they're starving it
There's
out.
nothing coming out.
Yeah.
They don't have the people to farm. It's just a slow death.
Of civilization, anyway. People are probably gonna live, but
I doubt it, unless they start eating each other.
oh, so there's no the biosphere doesn't provide.
Gruel-ish thing.
Yeah, you know, from what you've seen, there is like some food there, but it's obvious they used to rely pretty heavily on trade to like supplement like the meager sort of food that's growing on the planet.
So once the vegetation's gone, they're gone.
Okay. How many people are we talking?
Yeah, give or take.
What was that? Million?
Yeah, 1.
And they can't survive off the planet without a symbiote. There's not a million of those.
And we get more. How do they procreate?
I imagine the people procreate as normal, but the symbionts, I couldn't tell you. All we saw was flashes of eel-like things.
Well, unless we have I don't know, a carrier ship with stealth capabilities that can run a blockade.
So you'd need a dreadnought, and we don't have 2-point-something million sitting around. Unless you want to go and steal one, in which case I've only got to deal with 100 soldiers.
Yeah, we might need a crew for that.
We could definitely find, because I think there's definitely something going on. So rather than trying to break into the moon base, why don't we find some Dominion station in the middle of nowhere where we know there's someone who has this obsidian level clearance? And why don't we beat the proverbial out of him until he tells us what we want to know about what's going on in the Sol Prime?
I mean, I imagine it'd be fairly easy at this point to get the Capis involved, since the Dominion's just been skirmishing with them. But that's not exactly my favourite group of people.
No, but like I say, we could just... there'll be some small space station somewhere with a pretty high-ranking scientist who'll have the right level of clearance.
So what we could do is we could find someone with the clearance who could then maybe, with sufficient suggestive powers applied, try and get access to whatever information they can. And if necessary, we could try and get the Cathis to foot the bill for whatever the operation is going to be, on the premise that we're going to sell them Dominion secrets that they don't have access to. How's that sound?
Yeah.
And obviously you guys know that you have the sort of like the private comm frequency of Corpacoro at the very least.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, because our contact there was very open to just anything valuable, because we went in with like, oh, there's ancient alien technology. We came back with cyborg parts and it was good. So I was thinking that probably like merchandise, whatever that is probably good. So we probably like let's try and scrape Dominion secrets and sell them to the Cathis and get our info at the same time, maybe, or at least something to maybe get some more understanding of what we could do, if anything. because that might be an option as well. We might end up not being able to do anything, which is when we need to know that. We need to be aware of that if we end up in that situation. Because
yeah, but we could look then to move the princess and some of her symbiotes off planet.
Yeah.
Or give her the ability to, move supplies onto the planet, cloaked.
Well, we've got a cloaked freighter. As long as the captain stayed cloaked, and gets all the likes he wants.
Yeah, that would be the sort of, because of course the scale of this is quite large, so that would be a small scale ongoing thing which would help, but it's only it's only so big anyway, but it's something we could do. Do we want to go and try and get someone with obsidian clearance?
Well, we need to find someone first and then go and get them.
Yeah.
Hope Bakora can help us find someone with the right level of clearance and the right kind of small space station with very few soldiers.
So we're probably looking at, we go to the Cafes. We suggest that we would like to do a hit on a Dominion science base with appropriately Black Ops operations going on there, so that they have the appropriate clearance, and we can knock that out, and we can sell them what we find.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest, guys, if that's the plan you want to go with, is what we'll do is we'll cover the information you get from Corpacora in the sort of like the intro of next session, and then we'll jump straight to the bit with like you guys doing like your Black Ops infiltration of this small Dominion science base. How does that sound?
Yep.
Perfect, yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay, splendid. So I've made notes of that, so I will get prepped for that for next session, and we will call an end to this evening's session here. Obviously, I'm happy to chat for a bit and we'll sort out XP and whatever. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the session. I know it was a bit more of a talky one than the sort of action-packed space combat than previous.
Talkie's good. Combat is dangerous.
Well, yeah, quite. But thanks very much, guys. I'm going to stop the stream and the recording here, and then we'll have a chat and sort out XP and whatnot.